Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about the lateral line, and you will find out later why this is showing today. It's just to demonstrate things a lot better. Okay, so right back into it. The lateral line. The main thing the lateral line has to do is keep us stable in forward motion or backward motion for that matter. So the lateral line is to stop us from flexion or going sideways, or just, as we're walking, kind of just going all over the place. Okay, so the lateral line starts on the medial side of your foot, just underneath, and then runs through the side of the ankle joint, around, like, not medial, lateral side of the foot, sorry, hence it's the lateral line. So lateral just means outside. So it runs through the outside of the body. It runs through the hip complex here, and then it goes through your rib cage. And it's not just one line. You've got to imagine that fiber being like a big white band, and it's wrapping itself around all the bones, anchoring onto the bones as well. And it goes nicely into right under your armpit here, and then it kind of splits. And it does because it wraps into the ribs and stuff. It comes actually into that SCM muscle that we talked about last time with the frontal line, so it has an impact on that one as well as running through from here then into the ribs again, through the ribs, and comes into the back of the skull. So we do have an effect on the head as well through the lateral line. So with the lateral line, as I said, what we see most there is that it just is really tight in general, because most of what we do nowadays, everything is either forward or backward. So the lateral line doesn't get challenged a lot in terms of actually letting us fall to the side or having our hips going out and loading that line, and therefore getting challenged and giving it some movement. It kind of just is quite happy in its position here, gets stuck in there, and off we go. So I want you to simply try something. What happens there, if this gets all really nice and tight, we can often still use and tap into that lateral line in terms of waist flexion to the side, okay? So most of us are kind of still able to do this. However, with this, we are moving a lot through our lumbar spine here, okay? Which is okay, like the lumbar spine is actually not that weak or needs protection, our spine is quite strong. However, if you're having too much force going through the same areas over and over and over and compensating for other areas, then that's when we get problems. So what we can try now, instead of getting that trunk flexion happening and actually get some movement happening, you have to, if you want to use your hip, you have to unlock your knees. If you keep your knees locked, it's very hard to get some movement into those hips. If you do unlock those knees, all of a sudden, because you are using the legs as well to push into those other areas here as well, okay? And this is kind of what we're wanting to try and do. So as you can see, my upper body here stays fairly straight, yeah? It's kind of like I've got a rod, I've got my spine through there, and that's not moving a hell of a lot. My movement is all coming out of my hip. And this is also the mobilizer that we've got to try and get some movement back into that hip. So usually we go just onto one side to make it easier. So you're going to start softening your knees, feet nice together, soft through the knees, and then push your hip out just as far as you can without rotating into it, okay? So often best actually is to find yourself a wall, and you can either do that this way, or you can also turn this way. I find it a bit easier facing the wall because it keeps your head in check, okay? So you want to avoid rotation for this one, because you do want to go into this lateral aspect. So soft through the knees, let your hip go, and then pull your arm long. So that way we're getting a nice stretch through here. So pull your fingers away as far as you can and come back home, okay? So this is just your very basic mobilization for that lateral line. And again, just to show you that it's not coming through the waist. This would be waist movement now to try and go a bit further, but that's not what we're after. Okay, we want to stay nice and tall and really just see how far that hip can move and come back here. Yeah, and then you do the same to the other side. Beautiful. Always keep it moving, never hold the stretches on your mobilizer. Remember, our connective tissue is like a rubber band. We want to bring tensility, is that a word? Like a spongy compartment back into that band. It's literally like the stretching band that I'm using to demonstrate. We want those bands to be tight. They are under tension at all times, but we also want them to have the ability to move and to glide and slide across each other, because they are all interconnected. As I just told you with the lateral line, it is connecting into the front line as well as into the superficial back line. So when those areas get tight, that's when they anchor onto each other and then nothing moves anywhere. So you want a nice sliding, gliding movement through those tissues. Usually if you kind of can't move, or even if you do some massages and you get like those clunky movements because you're jumping over tissue, over bands, and it feels like you're jumping over just a very tight banded area. That's just a sign that the tissue is not as soft and pliable as it could be. So I showed you the mobilizer there for the lateral line, and I think that's where we're going to keep it today. And I'm not going to go too much into depth. But there you go. So it's again important to keep those lines healthy and moving and hydrated, and for just overall good movement. So we're going to start and tap into our inner Elvis here and start and freeing those hips. Cool. We'll see you next week.